Hello, my friends, and welcome to the first, and hopefully not last, episode of VoreTalk. I know. Apple, you haven't uploaded a Vore video for 5 months. All you have given us was some AI music. I know, and I'm really sorry that I wasn't able to upload new Vore videos for such a long time. But I have been running out of Vore comics that I could use to make bits on YouTube with. But I'm sure that I will be able to make Vore videos again very soon. Meanwhile, I will upload at least twice a month an episode of VoreTalk. But Apple, what is VoreTalk? Well, VoreTalk is, as the name might suggest, a podcast about Vore and Vore-themed topics. This episode, I want to talk about what Vore actually is and how I noticed that I'm into Vore. So, sit back, grab some snacks, and enjoy this episode.
Oh, welcome in. Come grab a seat. Where talk gets savory, sharp and sweet. Vore Talk's the name. It's quite the feast. A nibble of topics, to say the least.
This episode of VoreTalk is brought to you by Happy Granny brand dog food, the best meat byproducts that money can buy. Now available at your local wall-to-wall mart. So, what is Vore actually? Voreophilia, or Vore for short, is a fetish based on the fantasy of being swallowed whole and alive by a monster, animal, or even another human being, or swallowing someone alive and whole. Some peeps compare that to cannibalism, which is just wrong. A cannibal kills his prey, cooks its meat, and eats it, which is a real crime and intensely disgusting. A voreophile, on the other hand, would most likely never hurt a fly in real life. They focus solely on the fantasy of being swallowed whole and maybe even being digested alive, which is impossible in real life. Or have you ever seen someone swallowing someone else whole and then walking through the street with a huge bulging belly as nothing has happened? Of course not, because this is only possible in fantasy, cartoons, movies, and video games. And Vore content can be found almost everywhere, be it in a cartoon show like Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry, or even in movies like Man in Black. You might be wondering how people notice that they are into Vore. Well, I can't speak for everyone, but I can explain you how I found out that I'm a voreophile. If you want, you can share your experience with Vore, or even your questions, down in the comments below. So, it all began in 1994. I was 4 years old and was sitting in my grandparents' living room and was watching TV. I was watching cartoons on Cartoon Network, especially a show called Two Stupid Dogs, which was featuring 2 dogs, a small brown wiener dog and a big grey dog, which are, as the name suggests, very stupid. The episode that brought me into Vore is called Red Strikes Back, which is still my favorite episode of this cartoon. In this episode, the 2 dogs are out in nature and looking for something to eat. Soon, they find a can of canned cheese, which belongs to a little Red Riding Hood wannabe called Red, who is, surprisingly enough, even more stupid than the dogs. She tells them that they can have some of the canned cheese if they escort her to her granny's house. The dogs are skeptical at first if they should escort her, since in a previous episode they got beaten up by 3 bears because of Red. But after she told them that it's smoky barbecue flavored canned cheese, they agreed to escort her. After walking past the house of Granny, where Granny even gets eaten by a wolf, They arrive at a beautiful gingerbread house, which the two dogs immediately start nibbling on. Seconds later, the door of the house opens and a rather attractive-looking witch walks out. This witch, like Red calls her, is called Evil Lady. She asks Red if she is Gretel, since she is waiting for Gretel and her brother Hansel, but exclaims that Red would do, and lets her and the dogs inside. Once inside, the witch puts Red into a cage and forces the dogs to feed Red stuff like sandwiches, roast pigs, roasted chickens, etc. After 2 years and 8 months, Red became so fat that she didn't fit into the cage where she was kept anymore. The witch exclaims,
"It's dinner time!"
stuffs her into a cannon and shoots the fattened Red high into the sky. Evil Lady then transformed into a huge purple frog, which is beautiful and I wish I had that frog as a little garden statue, opens her maw, catches Red and swallows Red whole. Yum. Evil Lady then transforms back into her human form and lets out a small burp and looks at the dogs and tells them that she is still hungry. She then garnishes them with canned cheese and swallows them off screen. The episode ends with a picture of Red and the dogs inside of a stomach. Back then I didn't know what Vore is. All I knew was that I enjoyed to watch how people get swallowed whole in cartoons. 12 years later, I was 16 years old. I was watching Men in Black 2. I saw the alien Sarlina swallow a mugger behind a bush and walking out of the bush with a nice, big, bulging, sloshing belly seconds later. Due to YouTube guidelines, I can't explain you in detail what I was feeling as I was watching that scene. Let's just say that I noticed that I'm into that kind of stuff in a very mature way. After I noticed that, I started to panic, afraid that people might think that I'm insane, that this might be something bad like pedophilia or something. So I looked it up on the internet and learned that this, what I'm into, is called voreophilia and is essentially harmless as long as you don't harm someone or trying to feed yourself to animals in real life. So this was the story of how I became a voreophile. To those who just found out that they are into Vore as well, but asking themselves if it's bad that they are into Vore or wondering if they are bad people for being into it, no, it's not a bad thing that you're into Vore, neither are you a bad person for liking Vore, as long as you don't harm someone else or yourself. Well, that was all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of VoreTalk as much as I enjoyed making it. If this video reaches at least 500 views, I will make another episode in the next 2 weeks. Until then, my friends, stay hungry and churn you guys next time on VoreTalk. And here are 2 outtakes. Have fun! So, it all began in the year 1994. I was fear. I gonna scare them all! 12 years later, I was 16. What is 16?